In this video, we are going to learn about anterior pituitary gland and hypothalamus. Pituitary gland and its relation to the hypothalamus. The anterior and posterior lobes of the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, also called the hypophysis, is a small gland about 1 cm in diameter and 0.5 to 1 gram in weight that lies in the sella turcica, a bony cavity at the base of the brain, and is connected to the hypothalamus by the pituitary or hypophyseal stalk. So, physiologically, the pituitary gland is divisible into two distinct portions: the anterior pituitary, also known as adenohypophysis, the posterior pituitary, also known as the neurohypophysis. Between these portions is a small, relatively avascular zone called the pars intermedia, which is much less developed in the human being but is larger and much more functional in some animals. Embryologically, the two portions of the pituitary originate from different sources. The anterior pituitary from Rathke's pouch, Rathkes pouch, which is an approximate pronunciation, I guess, which is an embryonic invagination of the pharyngeal epithelium. This explains the epithelioid nature of its cells. The posterior pituitary originates from a neural tissue outgrowth from the hypothalamus, and this explains the presence of large numbers of glial type cells in this gland. 6 major peptide hormones plus several other hormones of lesser importance are secreted by the anterior pituitary, and 2 important peptide hormones are secreted by the posterior pituitary. The hormones of the anterior pituitary play a major role in the control of metabolic functions throughout the body. The anterior pituitary gland and the different cell types. There is usually one cell type for each major hormone formed in the anterior pituitary gland, with special stains attached to high affinity antibodies that bind with the distinctive hormones. At least 5 cell types can be differentiated. Somatotropes, human growth hormone, HGH, corticotropes, adrenocorticotropin, thyrotropes, thyroid stimulating hormone, gonadotropes, gonadotropic hormones, which include both luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. Lectotropes, prolactin. About 30 to 40% of the anterior pituitary cells are somatotropes that secrete growth hormone, and about 20% are corticotropes that secrete ACTH. Each of these other cell types account for only 3 to 5% of total. Nevertheless, they secrete powerful hormones for controlling thyroid function, sexual function, and milk secretion by the breasts. So, somatotropes stain strongly with acid dyes and are therefore called acidophils. These pituitary tumors that secrete large quantities of HGH are called acidophilic tumors. Then, hypothalamus controls pituitary secretion. Almost all secretions by the pituitary is controlled by either hormones or nerve signals from the hypothalamus. Secretion from the posterior pituitary is controlled by nerve signals that originate in the hypothalamus and terminate in the posterior pituitary. In contrast, secretion by the anterior pituitary is controlled by hormones called hypothalamic releasing and hypothalamic inhibitory hormones or factors secreted within the hypothalamus and then conducted to the anterior pituitary through minute blood vessels called hypothalamic hypophyseal portal vessels. In the anterior pituitary, these releasing and inhibitory hormones act on the glandular cells to control their secretion. The hypothalamus receives signals from many sources in the nerve system and is a collecting center for information concerning the internal well-being of the body, and much of this information is used to control secretions of the many globally important pituitary hormones. Hypothalamic hypophyseal portal blood vessels of the anterior pituitary gland. The anterior pituitary is a highly vascular gland with extensive capillary sinuses among the glandular cells. Almost all the blood that enters these sinuses passes first through another capillary bed in the lower hypothalamus. The blood then flows through small hypothalamic hypophyseal portal blood vessels into the anterior pituitary sinus. The lowermost portion of the hypothalamus called the median eminence, which connects inferiorly with the pituitary stalk. Small arteries penetrate into the median eminence, and then additional small vessels return to its surface to form hypothalamic, hypophyseal, portal blood vessels. These vessels pass downward along the pituitary stalk to supply blood to the anterior pituitary sinuses. So, hypothalamic releasing and inhibitory hormones are secreted into the median eminence. So, special neurons in the hypothalamus synthesizes and secrete the hypothalamic releasing and inhibitory hormones that control secretion of the anterior pituitary hormone. These neurons originate in various parts of the hypothalamus and send their nerve fibers to the median eminence and tuber cinerum, an extension of hypothalamic tissue into the pituitary stalk. The endings of these fibers are different from most endings in the central nervous system, in that their function is not to transmit signals from one neuron to another, but rather to secrete the hypothalamic releasing and inhibitory hormones into the tissue fluids. These hormones are immediately absorbed into the hypothalamic hypophyseal portal system and carried directly to the sinuses of the anterior pituitary gland. Hypothalamic releasing and inhibitory hormones control anterior pituitary secretion. The function of the releasing and inhibitory hormones is to control secretion of the anterior pituitary hormones. For most of the anterior pituitary hormones, it is the releasing hormone that are important. But for PRL, a hypothalamic inhibitory hormone probably exerts more control. The major hypothalamic releasing and inhibitory hormones, which are very important, like thyrotropsin releasing hormone TRH, which causes release of TSH, and corticotropin releasing hormone CRH, which causes release of ACTH, growth hormone releasing hormone GHRH, which causes release of growth hormone, and growth hormone inhibitory hormone GHIH, also called somatostatin, which inhibits release of growth hormone. Then gonadotropin releasing hormone GnRH, which causes release of the two gonadotropic hormones LH and FSH. Then prolactin inhibitory hormone PAH, which causes inhibition of PRL secretion. Additional hypothalamic hormones include one that stimulates PRL secretion and perhaps other that inhibits release of the anterior pituitary hormones. These hormones are also known as hypophysiotropic hormones.